The call came late at night, when the house was already quiet and the world outside was dark. A mother was sitting alone in her kitchen, thinking about the next day, when her phone began to ring. At first, she did not move. The sound felt strange in the silence. Then she looked at the screen and saw a number she did not know. She answered with a careful voice, not expecting the words that followed. Her son had been arrested. For a moment, she could not understand what she had heard. The words seemed too heavy, too sharp, too impossible. Her mind tried to reject them. Not my son. Not him. Not this. He had made mistakes before, yes, but this felt larger than a mistake. It felt like a wall had suddenly fallen in front of her and blocked the road she had been walking for years. The person on the phone spoke again, explaining where he was and what had happened, but she heard only fragments. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded. She sat down slowly at the table because her knees no longer felt steady enough to hold her. Her son had been caught stealing. The shock did not come only from the crime. It came from the knowledge that this was a child she had raised, fed, taught, corrected, loved, and prayed for. He was the boy she had carried in her arms when he was small, the boy whose first steps she had celebrated, the boy whose scraped knees she had washed, the boy whose future she had once imagined with bright hope. And now she was being told that he stood in trouble with the law. She covered her face with both hands and sat in silence for a long time. Fear rushed through her mind first. Fear for his future. Fear for his safety. Fear for what people would say. Fear for the damage already done. Fear for the kind of pain that leads a young person to make dangerous choices. But under the fear, there was something even stronger. Love. Raw, stubborn, unbreakable love. Her son was in trouble, and whatever he had done, she could not stop being his mother. She got up from the table, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on her face. Then she stood there and took a breath. This was not the moment to collapse. This was the moment to act wisely. She knew that panic would not help him. Shame would not help him. Anger alone would not help him. What he needed now was truth, guidance, and a path toward mercy and correction. He needed saving, but not by denial. He needed saving by courage. By morning, she had gone through every emotion a mother could carry. She had cried. She had prayed. She had paced the floor. She had thought about all the ways life had brought them here. Her son had not always been like this. He had been a restless child, full of energy and curiosity. As he grew older, life became harder around him. There were pressures she could see and pressures she could not. There were friends who pulled him in the wrong direction. There were disappointments that he hid behind a closed door. There were times when he looked lost even while standing in the same room. She had tried to talk to him. She had tried to warn him. She had tried to guide him. But somewhere along the way, he had started listening more to the wrong voices than to the quiet ones that tried to save him. That is how many young lives begin to break. Not always with one big fall. Sometimes it starts with small wrong steps. A bad crowd. A little lie. One stolen thing that becomes another. One secret that becomes many. One choice made in hunger, fear, greed, pride, or pressure. And then the wrong path starts to feel normal. The heart becomes numb to warning. The conscience becomes easier to ignore. What once felt impossible begins to feel manageable. And then suddenly the harm becomes visible. The mother knew that she could not undo the past. She could not go back and erase the choices that had led to the arrest. But she could still decide what kind of mother she would be now. Would she abandon him in his shame? Would she destroy him with fury? Would she pretend nothing happened? Or would she stand in the painful middle place where love meets responsibility? She chose the middle place. The first thing she did was gather the facts. She did not rush to make excuses. She did not rush to blame the world for everything. She wanted to know what had happened clearly and honestly. She asked questions with a steady voice. She learned where he was being held, what the charge was, and what needed to happen next. The truth was hard, but she faced it. She understood that saving her son would require her to live in reality, not fantasy. Then she called for help the right way. She reached out to a lawyer. She called family members who could be trusted. She asked for advice from people who would not gossip or shame. She knew that this was not a moment for pride. It was a moment for action. Her son needed proper legal support. He needed someone to stand beside him with wisdom and honesty. She refused to make emotional decisions out of panic. She knew that love must be steady when life is falling apart. After that, she went to see him. When she entered the place where he was being held, her heart broke at the sight of him. He looked smaller than she remembered. The hard edges of fear and regret were written across his face. He tried to hide it, but shame sat heavily on his shoulders. He could not fully meet her eyes. He seemed to expect anger first and mercy later, or perhaps no mercy at all. That hurt her deeply, because she saw that he was already being crushed by what he had done. For a moment she wanted to run to him, hold him, and promise that everything would be fine. But she knew better than to give him false comfort. She also knew better than to make him feel worthless. So she spoke to him with truth and care. She told him that what he had done was serious. She told him that stealing was wrong and had real consequences. She told him that this did not disappear just because he was sorry. But she also told him that this moment did not erase his life. It did not erase his worth. It did not erase the possibility of change. That was the beginning of saving him. Saving a son does not mean pretending sin is harmless. It does not mean covering up what must be faced. It does not mean teaching him that consequences can be avoided by tears alone. Real love does not lie. Real love tells the truth and stays. Real love says, you did wrong, and we will face it, and you are still not beyond hope. He listened with tears in his eyes. He had been expecting anger so severe that it would shut him down completely. But what he heard instead was a different kind of strength. He heard disappointment without rejection. He heard corrections without cruelty. He heard a mother who was willing to stand in the storm with him, without pretending the storm was good. The days that followed were painful. There were meetings. There were forms. There were questions from authorities. There were uncomfortable conversations. There were consequences that could not be avoided. The mother learned quickly that this season would require patience. It would require honesty. It would require every bit of strength she had, and more. She had to keep showing up even when fear told her to hide. She had to keep speaking the truth, even when shame wanted silence. At home, she kept the house calm. She did not turn every conversation into a lecture. She did not spend all day reminding him of his failure. She knew that constant humiliation does not heal a broken life. It often only pushes it deeper into darkness. So she made room for quiet. She made room for reflection. She made room for hard conversations at the right time, not all at once and not without purpose. Her son began to see that this was different from the times he had been in trouble before. This time, his mother was not rescuing him from the truth. She was helping him walk through it. She was not trying to erase the law. She was trying to help him face it with humility and learn from it. That realization humbled him. He began to understand that what he had done had hurt more than just himself. It had hurt trust. It had wounded the people who loved him. It had damaged the future he had taken for granted. At first he spoke very little. He sat with his head down often. He avoided eye contact. His guilt was heavy. He wanted to say too much and too little at the same time. He wanted to promise change before he had truly begun it. But the mother did not rush him into shallow promises. She told him that words alone would not heal this. She told him that change must be shown over time. She told him that he would need to prove his growth through action, not just emotion. This was hard for him, but it was necessary. There came a night when he finally broke down and admitted what had been growing inside him for a long time. He had felt pressure from friends. He had wanted money. He had wanted to look strong. He had wanted a quick reward, without hard work. He had been angry at life. He had felt left behind. He had wanted something he could not earn the right way, and instead of being patient, he chose the wrong path. At the moment, it seemed easy. Then it became serious. Then it became shameful. Then it became a chain around his neck. The mother listened without interrupting. She knew that understanding the root of a mistake does not excuse it, but it can help prevent it from growing again. She heard that her son was not only guilty, he was also lost. And lost children do not need only punishment. They need correction, boundaries, accountability, and a way back. She began to guide him step by step. She helped him understand the importance of telling the truth fully. She encouraged him to cooperate with the process instead of resisting it. She reminded him that hiding always makes a wound deeper. She urged him to take responsibility, not to escape it. She helped him see that being truly sorry means more than feeling bad. It means changing direction. The process was not easy. Some days he was angry. Some days he was silent. Some days he wanted to defend himself. Some days he wanted to give up. He felt embarrassed. And embarrassment can make a young person want to run from correction instead of learn from it. But his mother stayed steady. She did not allow his shame to become her fear. She did not allow his anger to control the house. She kept him grounded in what was true. She also began to notice something important. Her son was not the same as the thief people might imagine from a distance. He was not a cartoon of evil. He was a hurting young man who had made a harmful choice. That did not make the choice small, but it did mean there was still a soul to reach. There was still a heart to shape. There was still a future to redeem. That distinction mattered. If she saw him only as a criminal, she might harden. If she saw him only as a victim, she might excuse. But if she saw him as a son who had done wrong and still needed saving, then she could love with wisdom. Saving him now meant saving him from the next wrong step as much as from the present one. It meant protecting him from more lies, more bad influences, more selfish habits, more shortcuts, more pride. It meant teaching him that real strength is not in taking what is not yours, but in working honestly, waiting patiently, and accepting limits. It meant helping him learn that dignity comes from integrity, not from getting everything quickly. As the legal process moved forward, the mother remained calm in the middle of the chaos. She learned not to be ruled by every rumor, every fear, every possible worst-case outcome. She focused on what was in front of her. She followed advice carefully. She made sure her son understood the seriousness of the situation. She did not let love become foolish. She knew that protecting a child from the pain of consequences can sometimes destroy the chance to grow. So she let the consequences do some of their work while still surrounding him with care. That is one of the hardest lessons a parent can learn. Sometimes saving a child means not removing every struggle, but standing beside them while they face the struggle honestly. It means being present without interfering with the lesson. It means caring deeply without enabling. It means saying, "I love you enough to let the truth shape you." Over time, her son began to change in ways that were visible and real. He became more thoughtful. He became more careful with his words. He started to understand the weight of his choices. He asked questions about what he would need to do differently when he got another chance. He became less interested in looking impressive and more interested in becoming trustworthy. These changes were slow, but they were meaningful. The mother saw the difference in small things first. She saw in the way he carried himself. She saw it in the way he listened more carefully. She saw it in the way he no longer laughed off the seriousness of what had happened. He was beginning to grow up through sorrow. That kind of growth is painful, but it can be powerful. There were still hard moments. Some people judged him without mercy. Some looked at him as if one mistake had erased his humanity. Some had no patience for a young man trying to rebuild himself after falling. That kind of judgment hurt. But the mother taught him not to live under the eyes of everyone else. She told him that people may remember the mistake for a long time, but God can still write a different future. She told him that shame is loud, but it is not always truthful. She told him that he must decide whether he would become the label people gave him or the man God still intended him to be. Those words stayed with him. He began to understand that repentance is not simply saying sorry. It is turning away from the wrong road and choosing a better one. It is accepting corrections. It is making amends where possible. It is learning how to work honestly. It is learning discipline. It is learning patience. It is learning to sit with discomfort instead of escaping into bad choices. It is learning that freedom is not doing whatever feels easy. Real freedom is being able to live rightly without hiding. As the months moved on, the mother noticed a softer change in her own heart as well. At first, she had been consumed by fear. Then she became consumed by action. But later, as things settled into a more careful rhythm, she realized that God had been using this dark season to deepen her wisdom. She no longer saw her son only through the lens of his failure. She saw the larger picture. She saw a young man who had been rescued before deeper destruction could take root. She saw mercy working through discipline. She saw that arrest, painful as it was, may have interrupted a path that could have led to greater harm. That thought did not make the pain disappear, but it brought perspective. Sometimes what feels like disaster is also a warning light. Sometimes being stopped is a mercy. Sometimes being caught is the only thing that keeps a person from going farther into darkness. The mother understood that her son needed to be stopped before his choices became a whole life pattern. She thanked God, even through tears, that the truth came out when it did. The son also began to see this. He saw that he had been moving toward a life that would have cost him much more than he realized. He saw how one wrong desire had opened a door to a chain of bad outcomes. He saw that he had been chasing short-term gain and risking long-term ruin. He saw that his mother's discipline was not cruel. It was a rescue. He saw that the pain he was feeling now could save him from a future he never wanted. This changed him more deeply than any lecture could have. In time, he began to rebuild trust in the small places. He did the simple things well. He kept his word. He showed up on time. He took responsibility for tasks around the house. He looked for honest work. He apologized where needed. He became more careful about the people around him. He learned that character is built through repeated choices, not through one emotional moment. His mother watched this with quiet gratitude. She knew not to rush the process. She knew that a rebuilt life must be given time to stand. She also continued to pray. Her prayers were different now. At first, they had been prayers of panic. Then they prayed for rescue. Later, they became prayers of growth, wisdom, and protection. She prayed that her son would learn to value integrity. She prayed that he would not return to old habits. She prayed that he would know how to work hard and wait well. She prayed that he would choose good friends. She prayed that he would not mistake temporary excitement for real success. She prayed that his heart would become steady. The son noticed those prayers in the way his mother lived. He saw that she had not turned her love into fear. He saw that she had not allowed his failure to make her bitter. He saw that she still believed he could become better. That belief helped him more than he could fully explain. When a child knows a parent still sees goodness ahead, even after failure, it can give them courage to try again. Eventually, the worst of the crisis passed. The legal consequences remained part of the story, as they should. He did not walk away untouched, but he also did not walk away destroyed. He walked away changed. He walked away with a deeper understanding of truth, responsibility, and the cost of wrong choices. He walked away with a mother who had not abandoned him. He walked away with a chance to build differently. The mother came to understand that her role had not been to erase the past. Her role had been to help her son survive it without becoming it. She had to keep him from defining himself forever by one terrible decision. She had to remind him that failure is a chapter, not the whole book. She had to help him see that mercy is possible, but it is most powerful when joined with repentance. She had to show him that love can be both tender and firm. That is what guidance really looks like. It is not a soft confusion. It is not harsh humiliation. It is not pretending that sin is fine. It is truth wrapped in compassion. It is a correction held together with hope. It is a steady hand on the shoulder of someone who has lost the right path. It is saying, this is wrong, but you are still worth saving. The story of this mother and son became a testimony in its own way. Not a perfect story, not a story without scars, but a real story about consequences, mercy, and change. The son had been caught. The moment had been shameful. The future had looked uncertain. Yet love did not end there. Wisdom did not end there. Faith did not end there. The mother did not give up. She moved quickly, wisely, and firmly. She helped him face the truth, accept responsibility, and begin again. And that is why this story matters to any parent who is afraid, any family that feels broken, any mother who has just received a painful call, any father who has just learned his child has gone too far. The first urge may be panic. The next may be anger. The next may be denial. But the path that truly helps is clearer than all of those. Get the facts. Seek proper legal help. Face the truth. Do not excuse the wrong. Do not destroy the child. Do not hide from the consequences. Stay present. Stay calm. Stay truthful. Offer correction and support together. A son who has been arrested is not beyond hope, but hope must be joined with honesty. He must be taught that stealing is not harmless. He must understand the pain it causes. He must face the results. He must learn a better way. And he must be loved enough to be guided through the hard process of change. The mother in this story learned that saving a son does not mean saving him from every consequence. It means saving him from becoming lost forever. It means standing with him while truth does its work. It means refusing to let one act define the whole future. It means believing that a broken road can still lead to a changed life if the heart is willing to turn. In the end, her son was not just a thief who had been arrested. He became a young man who had been stopped, corrected, and given another chance. He became a son who learned that the right path may be harder, but it is the only path that leads to peace. And his mother became stronger too, because she had learned how to love without denying the truth. That is the guidance hidden inside the pain. Act quickly. Act wisely. Stay loving. Stay firm. Seek help. Face the truth. And never stop believing that a child who has fallen can still rise again. His arrest was not the end. It was the place where rescue began.